Studios. This is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX.
That's a new personal best pike here.
Now here's your host, Brett Amundsen.
That's right. I hunt and always will, and I fish and always will. And if you believe in that right to be able to hunt and fish whenever you want and pass that tradition on down to your kids and every generation after that, then this show is for you. We got a big show for you coming this week. That's Dan Amundsen right over there. Dan, how you doing?
Hey, doing all right.
Now, we've got a full crew from Pheasants Forever joining us today. Jared Wiklund, Eran Sandquist, and Kayla Blocker are going to be here. There's a new CRP sign-up going on now, and we're going to talk about all those details and what that might mean for you as maybe a landowner or maybe as a hunter, somebody that cares about habitat and wildlife. We'll explain all of that coming up on the show. There's a new Pheasant Fest, of course, going on in Chicago, Nebraska. There's a Chicago, Nebraska. I didn't know that. Did you know that? Did you know that?
I thought it was Omaha.
Well, I think Chicago is a suburb of Omaha, so it's Omaha, but technically I think it's in Chicago, Nebraska. What is the truth about the public land situation in Minnesota? We're going to dig into that a little bit here on this week's show. Plus, we have some in-studio guests. David and Lyndsey Eckhardt are here. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You're going to have to use the microphone if you.
We're doing good.
There we go. We can see you, but we can't hear you. All right. So we're going to talk to you guys, too, about CRP and some different perspectives on the Conservation Reserve Program and other habitat easement programs. David's a farmer. Lyndsey worked for FSA, so we'll get their perspectives on CRP here in just a little bit. Plus, we're going to talk about our recent fishing excursions and get a fishing report from Joe Henry. Who are our sponsors this week, Dan?
Yeah, our sponsors this week, as always, are OnX. Get the OnX Hunt app today. Know where you stand with OnX. Camp Grayling, catch the Grand Slam, trophy pike, lake trout, grayling, and walleye. Fish Camp Grayling this summer. Ottertail Lakes Country, find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Haybell Heights, campground and resort on Devil's Lake. Catch chase perch and walleyes out of a heated snow bear on Devil's Lake. Learn more.
Catch them too.
Well, I'm sure you can. And Lake of the Woods Tourism. The walleye capital is Lake of the Woods. Plan a trip this winter or summer at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Prairie Sportsman, our new season is underway. Watch episodes on the Prairie Sportsman's YouTube channel or check your guide for air times in your area. Wild Sheep Foundation. They have their banquet coming up March 25th, 26th at the Minneapolis Marriott Southwest. They're giving away a Doll sheep hunt. Go to MidwestWildSheep.com for more info. The Minnesota Deer Classic, March 11th through 13th, Canterbury Park and Shakopee. You wrote this way too long. Good grief. The Minnesota Deer Classic is March 11th through the 13th at Canterbury Park and Shakopee. I'm not even going to bother reading all that because that's way too long. And Mid-Migration Outfitters now booking spring snow goose hunts. Get more info at midmigrationoutfitters.com.
Yeah, so that Deer Classic is March 11th through the 13th at Canterbury Park and Shakopee. So Pat and Nicole Reeve are going to be there. Lee and Tiffany are going to be there. Melissa Bachman. I'm going to be there too. I'm going to be handing out some Sporting Journal radio stuff. So stop by Saturday from 1 to 3, March 12th at the Deer Classic, the Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic, of course, at Canterbury Park on March 12th. There's a lot going on. March is going to be a busy month because we're going to be at the Northwest Sport. Actually, that same weekend, I'll be at the Northwest Sports Show at the Tasman Lake Lodge booth, so you can stop by, see us there, and talk about giant lake trout and pike. And then I'll be bouncing back and forth to Canterbury Park and the Minneapolis Convention Center. Dan, this is show 494.
Yep, that's right.
494 shows. So that means our 500 show is coming, and we're going to throw a big party. Everybody's invited. You guys are invited. We're going to be up at Lake of the Woods at Riverbend Resort. We're going to have a 2-day fishing tournament on the Rainy River. So biggest walleye, biggest sturgeon are going to win prizes. We're going to have a bunch of people up there. We'll be throwing a party, giving away door prizes. There's going to be a happy hour in the bar every day. And we got a discount on lodging rates. So if you call up Riverbend and tell them SJR 500, that's a code for Sporting Journal Radio 500th show, SJR 500. We'll have all this information on our website at sportingjournalradio.com. But we're going to have a ton of prizes. We're going to have a good time. And we're going to do this show from up there. So you can be a part of this show with us on our 500th show coming up at Riverbend, April 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. So April 5th and 6th is the 2-day fishing tournament on the Rainy River. And it's Yeah, it's so much fun fishing up there in the spring. Huge walleyes and huge sturgeon as well. So come up and join us then. Hey, a Prairie Sportsman is off for a couple of weeks. So if you tune in to Pioneer PBS on Sunday night at 7:30, you're like, wait a minute, where's my favorite show of all time, Prairie Sportsman? It's not there. We're going to be back in a couple of weeks. We're taking a few weeks off for some special PBS programming, including some fundraising specials and things like that. So if you like the shows that you're seeing on Pioneer PBS out of Grand Falls, support them by becoming a sustaining member, doing some donations, stuff like that. And then we'll be back in a couple of weeks with brand new episodes of Prairie Sportsman, March 20th. We filmed it up in Ely. So there's a little teaser for you. It's a show from Ely coming March 20th on PBS. And you can watch our show on, probably, if you're watching this, you can probably find our show on your local PBS station or on your local PBS station's website or on the brand new Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. We got a brand new video coming this week from our stop in Florida at Bienville. We were down there with Shimano trying out some new lures, some rods, some reels. We had some of the Bass Elite Series, Tournament Series pros with us too, and some of the other guys. Alex Davis, we had to jump in the boat with him for a couple of hours. Here is a sneak peek of him talking about the New World Minnow from Shimano. We came across some deeper water, so Alex decided to try one of the new crankbaits from Shimano.
This is the World Minnow, and also they have a World Diver. It dives a little bit deeper. This one's going to dive about 3 to 5 foot. With jerk baits like this, I'm going to throw a Metanium. I like a slow speed, a 6.3. That's the gear ratio that I like. This is actually a 6.2. X-Pride. This is a brand new, it's not a new series, it's a redesigning that Shimano's done. This is the 610 medium. To me, you need a 610. You need that short rod. That's the main key with it. I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'1". But even with me, if I throw a 7-foot medium rod, my rod's always hitting the water. And when you do that, you are losing all the action. You're not doing anything. Your rod's just doing that the whole time. So a 610 is the perfect length. A medium action is the main thing. You want enough backbone so when you jerk it down there and one gets it, you know, you're going to drive the hooks home, but you need a really soft tip. The reason you need a soft tip is to throw this bait. That gets you where you can throw it further, and also when you're jerking it, you don't want to pull the jerk bait a long distance forward. You want this thing underneath the water. This World Minnow looks like underneath topwater bait. It's just slashing left, slashing right. So
yeah, so there you go. We got a full-length video that you'll be able to see on the Sporting Journal Radio YouTube channel. Alex breaks down all kinds of different lures that he's using while we're down there at Bienville, and the different rods that he uses for different lures, different presentations, different styles of fishing, all that good stuff. So you'll be able to pick up a thing or two and learn some things about bass fishing from him. Hey, don't forget, I know, Dan, you just sent out the new newsletter. We should remind everybody to sign up for the SJR Insider. We will send you information and probably links to that video and links to all the other videos that we do right to your email. Where can they sign up for that, Dan?
SportingJournalRadio.com. Click on SJR Insider.
All right. We were up at Lake of the Woods last week. The latest video that we posted out there was, can you catch Lake of the Woods walleyes on real gold? Now, we've talked about this 100 times, but when we first heard about these lures coated in real gold, what's the first reaction? Kind of gimmicky. What is this going to work? Well, if you're going to try that anywhere, Lake of the Woods is to try it. So we went up there, we put out the video, can you catch them on real gold? And we fished with Alex Peterson, who's a guide at Riverbend, and one of the guys in the group caught an eelpout. I don't know who caught. Do we know?
It was a different group, not our group.
It was a different group that was up there.
Yep.
So Dan happened to be in there while he was cleaning fish, and he cleaned up the eelpout, and he showed us how he likes to clean eelpout.
Now we're going to try out the Smith's hand knife. It's got some good flexibility on it. We got a prime specimen to test it out on. We have a nice eelpout here that these gentlemen caught. So I'm going to show you my way of doing it. There's lots of different ways to clean an eelpout. This is just the way that I do it. It works pretty quick and it's pretty easy. So you come up here behind the head and then you find the back of it. You want to make an incision behind the head down to about where this dark line is. So you make that incision down to there. I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut along what would be the backbone on this until you get past the belly to the tail, and then I'm going to take all the tail meat. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this back strap right here and all the tail meat. There's really no meat to salvage up here. Some people try to do it, but there's not enough there for me to worry about. So you don't want to cut very far down, only about an inch. You get past the belly, Then I'm going to go all the way through the fish. Bring it right down to the end of the tail. All right, and then come back, clean up this cut a little bit. Follow the rib cage down. Just like so. Then I'm going to come in, or I made the end of my 45 cut here, pick up on it a little bit, and just kind of bring that cut right back to where the tail is back there. So, cut along there. Just like that, back to where the tail cut was. Just like that. So now, you still have all the meat still on the skin. So here, when you're doing this, it's more of a sawing motion. So you're gonna get started. The knife is so sharp, it cut right through. And you're gonna get started. And then you can grab the skin and you literally just pull the skin and saw the meat right off. Just like that. That's half an eelpout. It's boneless. There's quite a bit of meat actually on one of these. A lot of people just throw them away, but these are some of the best table fare up on the lake. So we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. You get a nice piece of meat like that, and there's not a whole lot left on here. That's how you clean an eelpout with a nice Smith's knife.
There you go. Thanks, Alex. We appreciate that. That Smith knife is awesome, by the way. I really like that one. And he actually tried out some of the electric knife from Smith for us too. And we're going to get his thoughts on that in a video coming soon to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like that, subscribe to it, and follow us there. And if you like what you see, like and share this with all your friends. What do they say? They say smash that like button, right?
Some people say that.
Smash that like button.
Biggest fan likes that phrase.
So check it out. We're going to talk CRP coming up. I'm wearing orange for a reason, because we're going to talk pheasants and upland hunting and what habitat does for wildlife. We got a bunch of guys from Pheasants Forever going to be with us later in the show. Also, David and Lyndsey Eckhardt are in studio with us to give us another opinion on CRP. Hey guys, there they are right over there, just waiting for us. But first, we're going to get a fishing report from where that eelpout was caught from Lake of the Woods with Joe Henry.
Come ice fish the famous waters of Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world. Experience full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper house options. From the northwest angle to the south shore, Rainy River and Baudette, the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleye, sauger, perch, and northern pike. Minnesota's Lake of the Woods, best fishing anywhere. For more information, log on to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for listening on this station right here, by downloading the podcast or by watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, or wherever else you're watching this. If you like it, make sure you share it with your friends. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, all that good stuff. And if you haven't checked out our new YouTube channel, go to YouTube. Check out Sporting Journal Radio. Subscribe to our channel there. You can see our video from Lake of the Woods last week where we fished with real gold, ladies and gentlemen. And not only did we fish with real gold, we caught fish on real gold with these Al's Goldfish lures, and they coat some of their hooks in actual gold, 22 karat gold. And then they have a hook called a 49er. And Dan, we caught piles of fish. Once we tied that 49er on, we caught a pile of fish. And we're going to talk about that trip and some other very lucky guests to Lake of the Woods with Joe Henry right now from Lake of the Woods Tourism. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Brett. Hey, I got a question for you. I know you're the guy that would probably know this answer. I went out and shoveled this morning at Odark 30 and snow blowed. It was 10 below. And I know in the past I've probably frozen my darn thumbs ice fishing before there's good equipment. And my thumbs are just hurting, So I came in and they're practically frozen. And of course, when they unthaw, golly, it hurt. Why do they hurt so bad when they unthaw?
That's a great question. Because science, I don't know. It's funny how when things warm up, they do hurt. I don't know.
Yeah. Because of science. So that's a good answer. So continue on.
Science. I don't know. I will say this, Joe. I'll give you credit, too. When we were up at Lake of the Woods at Riverbend and we were getting piles of snow dumped on us, and we had some guests walking around, and you went out there and did some shoveling to help out and move people around. So that's a good tourism director right there. Helping out.
You know how it is. You're the same way. Whatever it takes, you're part of the team, and you're willing to do whatever you got to do to make things go well. And that's you're the same way. Danny's the same way, and I think that must be our Midwestern values, right?
That's right. We were raised right. That was a great trip up there. We caught a pile of fish, and we were trying out these new lures, Al's goldfish lures. You can see the video on YouTube, of course. So, Joe, so then as we must have been coming home. Were we coming home or we were up?
We're either home or just got home.
I can't remember. It was Friday because I think we had put the show out, and somebody was driving up to Lake of the Woods and saw our video come on YouTube or Facebook. I don't remember. Watched it and said, and all of a sudden the guy, Andrew, he started messaging me right away. He goes, "Hey, where do I find these Al's goldfish lures?" And I said, "I don't know." So you were in the email chain. I emailed the guys with Al's and everybody that was up there. I said, "Where do they find them?" And they said, Cabela's and Rogers, I think. So he his whole group detoured their way over to Rogers, stopped into Cabela's, wiped them out of the gold 49ers that they had from Al's there, and bought a couple of other colors as well. And then he sent me, just kind of updated me throughout the weekend and said that they caught the majority of their keepers. They caught on the 49ers. So I think 75% of the fish they kept, they caught on 49ers. So that worked for them. And then he said, unfortunately, the big fish that got caught was not on the 49er. And I said, "Oh, well, how big was it?" He goes, "Oh, it was a big one. It's going on the wall." And his buddy caught it.
Didn't you get video of that?
I've got video. His name was Corey Hambeck. He never iced fish before in his life. I don't think he was fishing too hard. I don't know that very, very, very much, but it's the first time he's ever ice fished, and the only fish he caught was this one right here.
Wow.
So lift it up.
Just take your time. That's a huge fish. Hey, dead stick, Brady, dead stick over here.
Come on, Brady. Whoa, whoa.
Oh my goodness. Holy. Shut the hook.
Dang.
Holy. That is a big fish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's pulling my line out.
Well, that's fine. You got
Is it?
That's good. Oh, Brady, let me read.
Oh, wait, no, it's stuck on something. It's stuck on something.
Oh, we're stuck. That's probably a line.
Whoa.
Are we stuck?
Yeah.
Yep, it's fine. Let go.
Let my line out. Just let my line out.
Oh, I got his line?
Yeah.
He went all the way over there.
Reel up.
The other pole's going down the hole.
Whoa, got two. I got two. Holy crap. Oh.
Tell Janelle she's listening.
Oh. Wow.
There's
wow.
I caught a little one.
All right, come on.
That's another solid.
Jeez.
It's like doubled
Do
up.
I just let him go like this?
No white on the tail.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, jeez.
Huge bite. Here you go.
Dad, can you help?
Oh my lord.
Holy crap. How do I hold it?
Holy crap.
Gill, like
Right
that.
in the gill.
Holy bite.
I still bite.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
That is the biggest.
That is the best. I'll watch fishing shows and I'll watch entertaining hosts catch fish, but I would watch that guy every single day if he had a fishing show catching fish like that with the excitement that he had. How much fun was that?
Oh, well, first off, it was like a Chinese fire drill. And secondly, they thought it was a big pike. And it was a huge walleye. And then that laugh. You tell me that laugh isn't infectious.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I love it.
30.5 inches was that fish right there, and chunky, obviously a trophy fish. And congratulations him. He caught it on a plain hook.
Talk about the memories of that fish. That's a fish of a lifetime. I heard Danny's using his laugh for his ringer on his phone.
We definitely should. So Joe, I mean, there you go. Like when we were up there, we caught a lot of saugers. We caught some small walleyes, but you knew the big ones were there, and it was just a matter of being there in the right place at the right time.
Well, it was interesting because we were, so just like the fishing report said, hey, it's February. The fish are spread out, a little more lethargic. Do the 1-2 punch of a jigging line and a dead stick. And you know what? You got to fish all day. You fish all day. There's different bite windows. It could change every day when the bite windows are. And we picked away at them. And we caught a lot of little fish, which we knew we would. At least we had action. Then every once in a while we get a good keeper. And that, over time, throughout the day, that bucket started filling up. Now, interestingly enough, we didn't get our slot fish or our trophy walleyes, which was a bummer. But hey, that's the way the pickle squirts, as they'd say. And
who says that?
Well,
I've never heard that one before. All right.
Well, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Carry on.
But no, we
we
had a good time. We had lots of fish for a fish fry. We caught multi-species, 15-inch crappie, jumbo perch. So it was Lake of the Woods. And here's the other thing: we took a half a day off from fishing and decided to go on a little adventure, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We went over to the Igloo Bar. Now, those people, a lot of those people, we had people, from Ohio and out east and from guys from Texas. We had people from all over that had never been up there before or hadn't heard of this bar on the ice, the Igloo Bar. And not only can you go out there and have a beverage, grab a snack, but you can fish out of that place, Joe. You
sure can. Well, here's what's kind of cool too, really. So we had this media event, and you get different partners that contribute, and one of the partners was Riverbend Resort on Lake of the Woods, and this is kind of Riverbend had a lot invested in this event, and they're the first ones to say, hey, we have a lot of great resorts around here, a lot of great things to do. Should we try something different tomorrow afternoon? Does anybody want to, Joe? Are you open to that? And I'm like, man, as long as you guys are, yeah, I think that's great teamwork, And we brought up the Igloo Bar, and did you see how everybody lit up? Yeah, let's go to that Igloo Bar. Yeah. So at about 2:00, we caught fish, in the morning and such. 2:00, we got together for a group photo, and then everybody carpooled over to Zipple Bay Resort, and we went out and hit the Igloo Bar, and it was fantastic. Cyrus Resort, too, out of fairness, they have a new bar out called the Angry Walleye that's out on the ice as well, and that's been really popular this year. Now, we fished out of the Igloo Bar, Brett. We didn't happen to catch any fish when we were there, but the bar was open. Everybody had a good time. And then we ran into some of the guides over there. And if you remember, those guys were showing us pictures of some of the big pike and walleyes that were being caught. And tell you what, March is that time of the year. We're approaching March. Right now is that time when, even though it's cold out, the days are getting longer. Those fish instinctively, the feed bait starts kicking in because instinctively they know the spawn's coming up, right? So they start eating and they start heading to their pre-spawn areas. That is why tip-up fishing in March is so popular. You have a lot of pike swimming around in areas that are just adjacent to the spawning areas. I'd like to comment on this photo, please, Brett and Danny.
All right.
I put this photo on Facebook, and of course, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon that this photo was photoshopped, and it's got a little shine coming off that pike. It just came out of the water, by the way. It's got a little shine coming off, so it must be a replica that this woman's holding, and there's no way a woman could hold a 20-pound plus pike with one hand like that. It normally takes 3 people to hold a fish like that, but I just want to say to all you trolls out there, you know what? That's a real pike. That's a real person holding it, and that pike was released when she was done holding it. And she caught that fish. They were targeting big fish in shallower water, about 15 feet of water, and they've been catching not a lot of fish, but I'll tell you what, that's the area where you have a chance to catch just a trophy. Funny thing about it, they're getting their big pike. Every once in a while with those big sucker minnows, they're also getting a surprise big walleye. Yeah.
I live on the internet and on social media, and there are days where I absolutely hate it. Sometimes it just brings out the worst. Some days it brings out the best in humanity. A lot of days it also brings out the worst. Obviously, with some wider angle lenses, you're going to get different perspectives on some fish. It's going to make some fish look a little bit larger than life, and that's just the way they make phone cameras nowadays. So, and who really is going to go to extent of bringing a mount out into a fish house just for a picture on Facebook. Like, people aren't doing that.
I'll tell you what, that pike was a giant. And you know the truth about it is, it's Lake of the Woods. We don't have to use Photoshop.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, we got a big party coming up, Joe, April 4, 5, 6 at River Bend. We're going to be back at River Bend. It's our 500th show of Sporting Journal Radio. We're going to be up there doing the show like we did last week up there. And we're going to have a fishing tournament. And that's going to be on April 5th and 6th on the Rainy River.
Who's invited?
Everybody. Everybody's invited.
Everybody can enter this tournament. And is it a real high entrance fee, or how does it work?
I believe it's going to be $20 to enter, and we're going to pay out prizes for largest walleye, largest sturgeon. I think we're going to do 3 places in both. We're still setting up the tournament, but it's going to be, I mean, we got hundreds of dollars in prizes. That's how many prizes we have. It's prizes is.
You probably learned that in your science class.
That's trust the science. Smith's Consumer Products. They're going to be a sponsor on the event. We've got some like electric fillet knives and some knife sharpeners and some other prizes from them. Live Target is a sponsor on it. We're going to be giving away some crankbaits and some other live target hooks. We're also going to have Yamaha Right Waters is a sponsor on this too, and they wanted to be a part of it. Joe, this is actually really cool. They wanted to be a part of it because of the sturgeon success story in the river cleanup that took place with the Clean Water Act and all the efforts that have put into place to bring sturgeon back in the Rainy River. When they heard that story, they said, yes, we want to be a part of this. So they are going to help out and sponsor the event as well. So we got a bunch of prizes. We got some really cool people. We're going to bring up a bunch of old friends. You're going to be up there with us. Corey Loeffler from the DRC Call Company is coming up. He's going to be giving away some custom engraved DRC goose calls as part of the prize package. We're going to be doing like door prizes each night from the bar up there. We're going to have happy hour. You're going to get some drink specials. So it's going to be, and you get to fish the Rainy River. Really, in that bottom line, that's the best part. So
here's the deal, is that, you know what, if a person was thinking about going up there anyway, what a fun crew. Very inviting crew, Sporting Journal. You know, I tell you what an inviting crew, what a fun crew to be with. And, you know, the neat thing about it is Riverbend's going to fill up if it's not filled up already. So then the neighboring resorts have a shot at this. And you know what? There's resorts that are all up and down the river. You can stay at there's lots of places to stay, Brett. You know, it's a Rainy River, and it's in April. You know what? You don't need a big boat. You can go out on that river. It's a small water, small water. You can get out on a small boat, so you don't need much. And I'll tell you what, sometimes the toughest time to go anywhere is that first time, because you've never done it and you don't know what to do. I tell you what, you just get out in that water and, you know, you kind of learn from us. You learn from the bait shops and the resorters, and you get out there and just go fishing. And normally up in Lake of the Woods, Rainy River, good things happen.
Yeah, early April. I'm excited about it. Walleye season goes to April 14. Big walleyes. Now, the question always remains, Joe, is how much of that river will be open at that time, and we're hoping for a good, clean river being open to the gap at that time. But yeah, we wanted it to be inclusive, because I know people come up there and fish for a week at a time or whatever. They take off work because this is a midweek trip. So we know people are going to be up there. We know they're going to be staying at other resorts, whatever. We wanted to make it open to anybody. So it's going to be through Fish Donkey. So we're going to have the tournament set up on the Fish Donkey app. You'll be able to just go on your phone. Obviously, it's all catch and release. Fishing is catch and release up there anyway, but it's a catch and release tournament. So you'll have to take some pictures while you're measuring it and all that good stuff. All the rules and instructions will be in the Fish Donkey app. So it's going to be a real slick, easy tournament, open to anybody.
Well, let me say this too. That Fish Donkey app, it's simple as going to the Google Play Store or to, you know, your Apple Play Store or your Apple Store and download the app for free. And then within the app, you just have to take a picture on a stick, on a ruler. It automatically calculates how big your fish is. And then you take a hero shot. I mean, it's simple. It's so simple. So really, if you have a smartphone, anybody can do it.
Yeah, so that'll be April 5 and 6. It'll be 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. tournament hours. We'll have all the details at sportingjournalradio.com. And Joe, I want to talk more about spring fishing on the Rainy River and all the work, even the work at the accesses that goes into it. We're going to save that for next week, though, if that's cool. And then you've got some, and you've got some sports shows coming up, right? Fargo and Sioux Falls.
Yeah, so the very first weekend of March, I believe, Fargo, the Red River Valley Sportsman Show. I'm going to have a booth there for Lake of the Woods Tourism, and I'll be giving seminars. And then, of course, the following week is the Sioux Empire, which is in Sioux Falls. And the same gig, have a booth there and talk to people, help them out, and also giving some really good seminars. By the way, the seminars, Brett, I gave in St. Cloud went over real well. Got some very good comments on them.
Well, if people want to learn more about Lake of the Woods, whether it be spring fishing, summer fishing, ice fishing, lodging, or more, what should they do?
Hey, check out our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Don't miss the 2022 Minnesota Deer and Turkey Classic at its new location at Canterbury Park in Shakopee, March 11th through the 13th. This year's Classic features top hunting celebrities like Driven TV's Pat Nicole Reeve, Lee and Tiffany Lakoski of the Crush TV, and Melissa Bachman. Get your antlers scored, view more than 300 antler entries, and see the latest hunting products, plus a great lineup of lodges and outfitters. For complete details on the 2022 Deer and Turkey Classic, visit mndeerclassic.com. All right, we're back. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here on the Sporting Journal Radio Network by subscribing to the podcast. Maybe you listen to it on demand at sportingjournalradio.com, or maybe you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, wherever you are enjoying us. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Thank you very much. Make sure, if you do like it, smash that like button, share it with your friends, and follow us everywhere on social media. As we try to bring you some tips and tricks and perspectives and ideas to make you better in the field, and also fight for your rights as somebody who enjoys the outdoors, so that we can keep these traditions for generations to come. One way to continue success in the field and to continue our way of life that we enjoy is by providing habitat for wildlife. If you want to go out there and be able to hunt, say, pheasants, you have to give them a place to live. You have to give them a place to get some food and provide some cover from the weather, from predators, and more. CRP is one of the most successful habitat programs out there. You can look at the pheasant harvest numbers throughout the years, and the highest years of CRP was at like 05, 06, 07, somewhere right in there, and you can see the peak of pheasant numbers right in that range there as well. And we're going to learn more about the CRP sign up that is going on currently right now with the Pheasants Forever guys in just a little bit. But before we do that, I want to learn a little bit more and get a perspective that you don't hear as often. So we've got David and Lyndsey Eckhardt in studio here with us. David's a farmer. David, right?
Yep, I've been farming for 12 years.
Corn and beans?
Just corn and soybeans, no livestock. So.
All right. And Lyndsey, your wife, worked for FSA for a while, right?
Correct. Yep, for 4.5 years. 4.5
years. So how often did you get asked about CRP or various conservation easement programs by landowners and farmers?
Well, I was the CRP program technician while working there. So every day, even when there wasn't a sign up, we were talking about it, we were working on it, we were sending out notifications and information to producers to fulfill their contracts.
So that was, yeah, you're probably pretty busy. What years was that?
2016 through 2020.
Okay. What was the most common question you got asked about CRP in particular?
It was all over the board. A lot of producers would come in with no information regarding CRP and just wondering what programs they could sign up for through FSA as a whole. Other producers would come in very knowledgeable. They knew exactly what they were eligible for on certain parts of their land. They knew exactly how many acres they wanted to sign up. So it really varied. We really ran the gamut of who we were working with, beginning farmers that hadn't ever farmed before, that were just getting into it, all the way to farmers that have been multiple generations and have worked with FSA and CRP for many, many years.
How easy is that process when a producer comes in and says, yep, I want to get in on this new sign up for CRP? How long does that process take before the deal is done, everything's signed, and the land goes into habitat?
On a producer's end, it's pretty straightforward. There are some hoops that they have to jump through as far as eligibility for the program and making sure that their land specifically is eligible for certain practices. Not every piece of land is going to be eligible. CRP specifically is a program designed to take sensitive land out of crop rotation and crop production. Excuse me, to make sure that it's not eroding or it's not flooding, and if it is, there are CRP programs that would fit that. So first we have to make sure that they're eligible both as a producer and as the land. And then we do a lot of work to make sure that we're putting it in the right program, whether that's filter strips, which we did a lot of, whether that's, bird habitat, whether that's tree lines. It really varies. And they sign some contracts. They have to make sure that, it is a 10 to 15 year contract. So it is a big commitment, and they have to make sure that they know what they're signing up for, and making sure that they're willing to do what it takes as far as maintenance and planting the specific seed in order to get that money. It's not just a free money program. So on the producer's end, it does take a little bit of work. It does take a little bit of research and knowledge, but the FSA personnel does a lot of that work along with NRCS and Soil and Water to make sure that they're knowledgeable and that they're signing up for something that's going to be good, not only for them, but for the land too.
Well, how often was it somebody that, say they got, I don't know, 160 acres and says, I don't know what I can do, but I want to get in on CRP. Would somebody get sent out to look at the land then and kind of make a plan?
Yes, sometimes, if there were very specific requests from the producers. There's also technology that we have that we map the soil that's already mapped in it. We see what each piece of land is eligible for based on the soil maps that we have. So that would dictate if it's eligible for, something that would conserve erosion, making sure that water banks and whatnot aren't being destroyed versus something that would be planted for bird habitat. So
the filter strips were a little controversial.
They were, yes.
And you can talk about however you want to talk about this, but what did you hear from people about filter strips?
Well, I want to point out that farmers and agriculture producers, they're stewards of the land, first and foremost. Obviously, they need to make a living, and they need to make sure that their crops are, producing what they need. To be able to financially make farming work.
That's Mika thanking a farmer for pheasant habitat right now.
And so a lot of producers would come and utilize FSA programs, CRP, to make sure that they are doing what's right for the land and, getting some monetary benefit for that. So we did have a lot of people that were utilizing FSA and CRP prior to the filter strips mandate being put into place. Some people really like the filter strip mandate, which is 16.5 feet on either side of a waterway to stop erosion and provide a buffer. Some people, just like with anything, don't love the government overreach. Yeah. So it was mixed. They were being compensated for that land. CRP is put into place to provide payment for a quote-unquote crop that you're planting, which is like a grass mixture, whatever that may be based on the CRP practice. But yeah, it was, you dealt with some producers that were being forced to put it on their land, those filter strips, and they didn't love that. Yeah. But most of the people that we worked with were very good, and we, it upped our workload too. So it wasn't always the best for us, but we made it work, and we're always grateful for the producers that really come in and appreciate the work that everybody did. So,
well, mandates, nobody really likes being told what to do,
right.
What I always heard from farmers was that it's not a one size fits all. So that's where the mandate becomes a problem, because it's not everybody's land is the same. But I also understand the need for clean water and filtering, and those filter strips. Not only did they provide, it was those filter strips and buffer strips, really benefited so many people. I understand that farmers didn't like some of their land getting taken away or having to work around the strips like that. But not only did it provide habitat, but what it did for water quality and being able to filter some of that water quality and help control erosion a little bit, I think is something that is important that we all need to think about these days. David, from a farmer or producer, landowner perspective, when it comes to CRP, do you guys have any CRP right now?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we've got several farms that have CRP and mostly filter strips. So when that mandate came through, we had filter strips on all of our ditches already.
Oh, you already had them, so you were cool with it. It was like, now we're getting paid for it.
Right.
Perfect. All right. When say there's the new sign up, the new general sign up is going on right now, when you think about CRP, what what's a determining factor for you? What makes you say, no, that's not for me, or this, oh no, this sounds pretty good?
It's more so for like trouble areas. Like say you've got a low section that drowns out all the time. Well, instead of either paying rent on it and then putting the inputs into it and not getting anything off of it, or if you own it, same, you're putting inputs in and not receiving any benefits off of it, you can put it into CRP and then still get some money back, but not have to put all those input costs in. So,
sorry, it sounds like my little dog is destroying something in the other room right now.
Sounds like she's trying to dig through the floor.
Oh
Maybe.
boy, I might have to do something about that. All right, and then so is your let me start that over. So, how long of a contract have you renewed contracts on those strips then, or are you still in the?
One of my dad's we renewed a couple years ago and just left it all the same. So we didn't have to change anything.
So you were able to just keep re-enrolling, and you liked the way it worked, and would keep re-enrolling if you have the option.
Yep, and we pheasant hunt, so it's a nice spot.
You know, I think I don't always think people realize how many farmers are actually hunters. You know, farmers get a bad rap, and granted, there's bad people in every walk of life. So there are some people maybe doing some things wrong, but farmers always get the bad rap about, you know, plowing every piece of dirt over and tearing up all the grass. But a lot of farmers hunt.
Yeah,
and I don't think people always realize how many actually do.
Well, they're out there all the time. They know what's there, so.
Gosh, I should
chase them too.
I should be a farmer. Big giant food plots, right? And some filter strips around it. Sounds good to me. Do you do some food plot work then too? I
do a lot of food plot work. Yeah,
okay.
I do a lot of deer hunting, and I plant probably 5 or 6 acres of food plots between all my food plots that I run.
Just bouncing back to CRP for 1 second, when it comes to like CRP rates, are they competitive enough? Is that come down? You know, does the price that you're getting versus the price of, you know, corn and beans, how big of a factor is that role? And does it depend on the size of your farm and maybe the size of the acreage you want to put into an easement program?
I think it depends more on the soil type, but I'll hand it to Lyndsey.
All right.
So every sign up has different rates that are associated with it, set by the national office. And it is based on the soil maps that we have. That's the annual payment and the acres that are going into the contract. And to your point, CRP was never intended on being something that would take good, productive acres out of production. It was for those sensitive lands, those lands that, like David said, you know, might be a little wetter, might be
marginal.
Marginal, yes. And so there were a few years that, you know, around the time that the filter strips were implemented, that they were really high rates, and we did see some producers saying, and owners and renters saying, you know, I can't match these rates of CRP. And so there were some acres that were maybe not filter strips, but other programs or other CRP practices were signed up that, you know, maybe they should have been left in conventional farming. They weren't necessarily sensitive, but they were providing a really good payment, and they were competitive with what people were paying for rental rates. That's not typical, and those rates have come down, but the program was never intended on being competitive against producing food to feed the world.
Sure. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys stopping by and giving us a bit of a different perspective. I like hearing from the farmers, and then to have a wife who worked for FSA. I mean, that's perfect.
Yeah, he had in-house help from FSA.
Is that like insider trading? Do you find out about, hey, there's going to be a new CRP and you're going to want to get in on this?
I'd make him call the office a few times. I'm off the clock. I don't want to answer these questions.
That's funny. All right. David, Lyndsey, Eckhardt, thanks for the time today on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And David, we'll have you back next week. How about that? All right. Lyndsey, you can come back too if you want.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. We're going to talk more CRP and Pheasant Fest and pheasants in general with Pheasants Forever. We got Jared Wiklund, Eran Sandquist, and Kayla Blocker coming up on the show.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties.
All in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. All right, welcome to the show, or if you're listening to this on the radio station, thank you for tuning in on this station on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, or if you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, thank you very much. If you like it, smash that like and share and follow button and all that good stuff. So I recently, Dan, I think obsessed is probably the right word for it. I've become obsessed with pheasants, from hunting them to watching my dogs hunt them, and just learning more about their behaviors. And one of the ways that I've been doing that is by chasing around with a camera or taking pictures or taking videos. And recently, Pheasants Forever shared one of my favorite videos. So what we're watching right now on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever is a group of birds landing in a food plot. And gosh, it's just, I could sit and just watch this on repeat all day long. It's just so cool. And I got really lucky with the placement of my camera on this. I just happened to put it right where they were landing. In fact, I've got a few more videos like this. Two pheasants hit the camera as they come in and land in there. They were a little surprised, I think. No birds were harmed in that video. But I get asked all the time, how did I get that? And honestly, the best answer I can give them is habitat. From planting that food plot, from having cattail cover nearby, from having willow thickets. They love the willow thickets around here, especially in the wintertime, this time of year. And without all those types of habitat around there, you wouldn't have the birds, at least not numbers of birds like that. And also, I sat and watched them for hours. For 2 weeks, every morning and afternoon, I was out there with cameras, and I took, 20,000 pictures and recorded hours and hours of video. So long story short, I worked really hard to get lucky. And trail cameras and GoPros and different cameras like that can really come in handy. And that was a GoPro, so I had to, not only did I have to figure out where those birds were landing, but I had to figure out what time it was, because I had to hit record and then walk away from it and just hope that the battery didn't die before they came in. So I got pretty lucky. And that's not the only really cool video of pheasants in a food plot that I've seen recently. This one was also on the Pheasants Forever page, and this shows pheasants feeding around food plot, corn food plot, standing corn, and then you see an aerial predator come in and just bomb into that corn, and then the pheasants flush out. And that video was taken and shared by Jared Wiklund, Public Relations Manager with Pheasants Forever. And Jared joins us on the show right now. Jared, how's it going?
Hey, Brett. I'm great. Thanks for having me on.
What was that bombed those birds, and did he get anything?
To my knowledge, and I'm not an ornithologist by trade, but talking to people who've asked similar questions about it, I think it was either a red-tailed hawk or a red-shouldered hawk, both of which I think you can see it kind of came through. I think it noticed some movement there and just made a 180 and took a dive down near the corn. But there was no birds harmed in the making of that film. But it was really cool to see afterwards when I put it on my computer. It's funny that red-tailed hawks, and especially red-tailed hawks, get a lot of the blame for, like, oh, I don't have any birds in my area. The hawk population is horrible, In most cases, red tails aren't the ones causing any problems. They're more ambush predators that sit in a tree and fall down and eat a lot of mice and voles and stuff like that. So it was a cool video. Those birds all made it out of there, and they flew to a cattail slough that was just off the right-hand side of the screen. So
it's a neat video, and it's pretty neat how those trail cameras have allowed us to peek into the natural lives of some of the wildlife and how they interact with each other out there on the landscape. And when you have good habitat, you're going to have lots of wildlife out there. And that's part of our discussion today. It's most of our discussion today here on the show. And we also have Eran Sandquist, the Minnesota State Coordinator, with us from Pheasants Forever. Eran, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I feel a little bad now. I don't have a cool video like you and Jared, but I can assure you that I share your love for habitat equally.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to discuss what our habitat situation is here in Minnesota, and we'll also talk about the surrounding states today as well, too. And then Kayla Blocker is joining us. She's a Farm Bill wildlife biologist with Pheasants Forever. Kayla, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be on here.
So part of the reason that we're having you guys on right now, of course, is this general sign up for CRP. And it's nice to see that we've got the opportunity for people to sign up right now. What are the details and how can people sign up for it right now, Kayla?
So the details for general CRP is landowners will come into the local FSA office and submit an offer requesting that some of their environmentally sensitive land gets put into cover, native cover, grasses, trees, and so on. Once FSA takes their offer, they'll establish a score. And then for the general sign up, it is ranked and scored nationally. The Secretary of Agriculture sets a capped amount for the score that is accepted. And then from there, we establish the CRP.
I wanted to put you on for, I knew you were a little nervous, so I wanted to just get you on right away, get you right out of the gate and get it over with. So you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's nice. I know. So when did the last farm bill come out? Was that a couple years now?
2018 was the most recent farm bill.
All right. So I'm reading about it right now. There is 22.1 million acres enrolled, right? With 25.5 million acre cap set for 2022. So that means we can. How many acres are available in this sign up then? Would that be?
I believe it's 1.4 million acres.
Okay, so that varies then. Like how much people can. Is that set for each state? Like each state gets a different amount?
There are certain incentives within the program that are set per state. Most of those are for the continuous sign up, but under the general sign up, it is ranked nationwide. I gotcha.
Ooh, excuse me. All right, Jared, we're 25.5 or 22.1 million acres. Not bad. Not quite where we would like to see it, though, is it?
No, I mean, if you look back to, if we rewind the clock a little bit, I think a lot of listeners will recognize like 2007, 2008, we were sitting at just under 40 million acres of CRP, and that corresponded with upland bird harvest, kind of modern day highs in a lot of states. Minnesota was one of them. South Dakota that year, 2007, 2008, they shot more than 2 million roosters. I mean, it was just absolutely loaded with birds. And, throughout time, it just goes to show that CRP continues to be sort of the Cadillac or the catalyst behind pheasant populations in this country. And I get a lot of questions throughout the year, especially when you go east of the Mississippi River, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. A lot of those states used to shoot 1 million birds a year as well. And people have asked, why can't we do that anymore? What's the number one thing that's happened, or what's the number one particular factor that's affecting pheasant populations? And that's just grasslands, intact grasslands on the landscape. Nesting cover continues to be a number one limiting factor. And when you compare some of those eastern states to what we have in Minnesota, Dakotas, Kansas, where all these states are in the 1 million plus acres of CRP, that really, your answer is staring you right in the face. We just don't have enough grasslands in some of those states to sustain an upland bird harvest like we do in the Midwest here.
So when I talked about that habitat where I got that video, well, some of this habitat is in the CRP program and some of it's also rimland. How many, CRP is the one that gets talked about quite a bit, but there's some other options out there for people.
Yeah, there definitely are. You talk about easement programs, conservation reserve enhancement program through CREP. Each individual state kind of has their own incentives that they'll throw in on top of general CRP, but there's all sorts of different grassland CRP programs that are available, and other agricultural programs that are available through FSA and NRCS offices. So it is incredibly important. And like you pointed out, like the birds that you showed in that video, which is probably one of the biggest videos we've shared on Pheasants Forever's Facebook page, maybe ever. It just goes to show that habitat really is the key to having upland bird populations. And it's all those things combined. You know, I don't want people to get the misconception, like they see the corn there, like I need corn and I'm going to have upland birds. It starts way before that. It starts at nesting season. It starts with good winter cover. You got to have the food next to the kitchen, as we like to say, which is exactly what you have there. They don't have to travel far from the cattails. And utilizing the suite of programs that we have available, not only through the Farm Bill, but at the state level as well, are extremely important for making upland bird populations grow now and in the future.
Kayla, as a Farm Bill biologist, what are you hearing from farmers and landowners about this year's sign up? I guess this year's option.
Obviously, the rental rates right now are talked about a lot when it comes to their options and their decision ultimately to put it into CRP. It's very competitive with our county level land rent price. So the CRP has, in the last couple of years, has been increasing as rental rates have been as well. So as well as I see,
don't you? I mean, it needs to be competitive.
You do. Yeah. Otherwise, you don't have that desire to put it in. A lot of the people that you meet in the office are going to be either absentee landowners or landowners that have areas that aren't as productive that they want to be able to make an income off of still. So it does need to be competitive.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it's all about, right? Jared, you're not talking about taking over somebody's whole property and planting grass on it. I mean, obviously, nobody's going to complain about that, but you're talking about taking land that is hard to farm, marginal croplands, stuff that the farmer's just gonna get frustrated trying to work a plow through it or whatever. It's gonna flood out, whatever the case may be, and turning that into, turning it into habitat and giving the farmer some money in his pocket at the same time.
Yeah, it's extremely important, and I think the term that I like to use is precision conservation. We don't need to turn whole sections into CRP. In some cases, whether it's CRP or some of the acquisition work we do, we love getting big pieces of property. But when we're working with landowners, we're focusing on the marginal acres that they have. And I think folks need to remember that CRP was always about soil health and water quality. Wildlife habitat came a little bit later. And now we're getting into more things too, moving forward with the term sustainability. So climate resiliency, I think, would be another one as well. I think, and Kayla's absolutely right. In 21st century conservation, we need to make sure that we are compensating landowners fairly. And one of the things we're running into right now is when, we did have a little bit of a bump in soil rental rates for CRP. But at the same time, as grain prices go up and down, and right now they're pretty up, CRP is a little bit of a harder sell when you look at cash rental rates per county and what people are getting. And we'll never demonize farmer, rancher, landowner, because it's a financial decision. So how do we make it financially feasible and ecologically viable at the same time? And that's part of the advocacy work that Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever works on with the Farm Bill and in each individual state.
All right. Well, we want to bring Eran into this conversation, but if you're listening on the radio show, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with more with Pheasants Forever and habitat work coming up right after this. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devils Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, we're back on the radio network. Thanks for tuning in. Or if you're listening to the podcast, welcome back as well. Maybe you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or wherever. Make sure you smash that like button, follow us, share this with your friends if you like what we're talking about. And what we're talking about is important. If you are a hunter or a fan of wildlife, if you're an upland hunter, honestly, if you're a waterfowl hunter, a deer hunter, a pheasant hunter, it doesn't matter. What we're talking about is going to benefit all those wildlife species and a bunch of non-game species as well. And that's just about putting wildlife habitat on the landscape. And one of the more successful ways of doing that has been the Conservation Reserve Program, or CRP. And there's a general sign up going on now through March 11th. So we've got Jared Wiklund, Kayla Blocker, and Eran Sandquist from Pheasants Forever with us here on the show. And Eran, I want to talk to you about what the landscape looks like, particularly in Minnesota. You're the state coordinator in Minnesota, so let's start there. I'm going to throw this question at you. You probably got it in your notes. Maybe you have to look it up. But what's the number of acreage of public land that we have here in the state of Minnesota, kind of currently right now?
Well, if you're talking state of Minnesota, you're looking at like 12 million acres. Now, the vast majority of that is kind of the northern half of Minnesota, where you have a lot of woodlands and you have county-owned lands that are open to the public, county tax forfeit. You have state parks, state forests. You have wildlife management areas. So when you get south into what we call the pheasant range, then the number of public land acres decreases pretty significantly, and you're looking at like that 1.5 million acres across the pheasant range of Minnesota.
So 1.5 million acres of public land, that makes the CRP program just that much more important, so that you got habitat on the private lands as well too. Because I'll tell you what, I don't know how many times I'll walk a public WMA in southwest Minnesota, especially later in the year, and you might flush a couple of hens, or you might shoot some roosters too, depending on it. But there's usually some adjacent property that's private that's got habitat, CRP or RIM or whatever the case may be, and that's where all the birds are, especially later in the season. So how important is that to have particularly adjacent lands or corridors in addition to the public lands that we have here in Minnesota?
Well, it's absolutely critical. And, that's, we phrase that the habitat mosaic, and that's what we're really trying to do here is build complexes of habitat that make sense strategically across the landscape to kind of maximize the wildlife production on all of the habitat. And then certainly, the public land component is providing that access for people to get outside and enjoy those wildlife areas as well.
When you talk about that amount of public acreage, and yeah, a lot of it is up north and trees and not really in the pheasant range, but when you talk about that acreage down the southwest or southern part of the state where you got pheasants, what are the odds of growing that number, and what's the challenge of growing that number, and what's the target number? How high do we want it to get?
Well, those are great questions, and I would say we're, as it relates to public land, we're trending in the right direction. We have a lot of great opportunities currently in Minnesota. Things like dedicated funding that Minnesota voters passed back in 2008 has certainly been a huge boost as it relates to not only wildlife habitat, but also publicly accessible wildlife habitat. So, one thing that I want to mention, and this is true of both public land efforts, protection efforts, and private land, is it's completely voluntary. So we work with folks who want to make habitat on their private land, whether it's through programs like CRP or permanent easements that you referenced, and we work only with willing sellers who want to protect their land as public accessibility, as something that's wildlife habitat, but also publicly accessible.
How often do you run into? There was a case a couple of years ago, and I don't even know. It might have been last year that it finally got wrapped up. I can't remember now, but Lac Parle County in the situation with somebody trying to sell their property, and the county blocked it, and this and that. I think it finally got resolved. I think the outcome was good for that, right? He was able to sell it.
Well, he hasn't yet, but yes, that's trending in the right direction as well. Okay. The Land Exchange Board did approve that sale to go through now. There's a bunch of process to get make that happen and be fully executed. But they're working on it with the state of Minnesota, and we see a lot of folks that really want to protect their land through Pheasants Forever and as WMAs, as WPAs, and that's really a niche of Pheasants Forever. Our supporters, our volunteers, people are losing access to wildlife habitat and properties that they've had permission. They just don't have that permission. So public land has never been more critical, especially in the southern part of Minnesota.
And I see it I can see it from both sides to some extent. I don't remember that particular scenario on how it played out in Lac-Paul County, but I can see it where farmers, hey man, that could have been farmland that I could have leased or bought and grown corn on it and made some money. I could have passed it down to my kids. Now that's never going to happen. But that land was marginal, right? Like that wasn't good land to farm on anyway. So, but I can see how some people could have issues with some land coming out of production. But access, which you just brought up, access I think is number one right now. There's a lot of discussion about increasing hunters, increasing participation in the outdoors, license sales declining, and what the right answer for reversing that. Everybody's got a little bit different opinions, but I think access is key. I think that's the number one thing, particularly for, say, pheasants or deer hunting. And in waterfowl, I had this discussion. Tom Landwehr was on the show and in the house here in the studio a couple of months ago, and he said, Brett, we got 10,000 lakes. You can waterfowl hunt all over the place. And I said, well, I understand that, but when it comes to, walking through the grass or walking through the woods or something like that, access is quite a bit more limited, particularly in the southern part of the state. So access, I think you nailed it, is huge. And what can a person do? Like what can we do to help create access to more lands or create more public lands out there?
Well, there's a few things, and I'll go back to your first comment on marginal land, and just like the CRP program and other private land programs, we're targeting the marginal farmland, and we hear so many times from the folks who are working with us to protect their land as public hunting. I never should have farmed this. It's terrible land. It's always flooded, or it's never gets a good crop, and they tell us that they wish they never had plowed it. So those are the properties we're targeting. We're not targeting prime farmland. We understand that we need agriculture and pheasants need agriculture and a balance that way. So, as it relates to what people can do, support public lands, buy your hunting and fishing licenses, utilize those properties. Some of the best days that I have in the office are when I get an email with a pheasant or some young person had just harvested an animal or had a great experience on a public land. They get back to the vehicle, they see Pheasants Forever had acquired that property on the sign, and they take a picture and then email it and say how great of an experience they had. So, getting out there and utilizing their public lands will help us as a conservation community create more of those, and all Minnesotans understand how valuable they are to our hunting heritage and our quality of life here in the state.
How do we determine how much of that CRP is available for Eran? This is a question for Eran. How much? How's it going over there, Dan?
Do it yourself.
How much, when there's a sign up like this, how do we determine, how do we figure out how much Minnesota is going to get?
As it relates to CRP?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know if that decision has been made yet. That happens in DC as I understand it, and that'll be part of. They're looking at all of the bids, so to speak, and all the applications, and that will help determine how many acres are allocated by state.
Okay, I'll bring Kayla back on for that one. She's over there nodding her head. She's got the answer for that. I know we kind of touched on it earlier, but. When we talk about creating more habitat, what can we do to get more of that here or in areas that, close to here?
Obviously you want to look at as Eran and everyone has mentioned, your marginal areas. So the last couple of years, other than last year, the very wet areas that used to be wetlands. You know, we're in the prairie pothole region, and a lot of Minnesota land can go into a continuous sign up through CRP for wetland restoration.
So how does the general walk me through that? So there's a continuous sign up. So if somebody's got something enrolled and their contract comes up, they'll have the opportunity to re-enroll it. That's continuous, right?
It can be either through continuous or general. So the local USDA between both FSA and either a farm bill biologist like myself or a soil and water tech or an NRCS soil con is going to look at their land and determine which sign up is going to be best for them. Okay. If it needs to go through a general ranking where it's not going to be guaranteed, or a continuous sign up where it's more guaranteed to be able to get in.
So the general, basically you say, hey, I've got 80 acres here, I want to put it in, and then it gets submitted, and then the determination comes down if that one makes sense more than another piece of property.
Correct. Yep. So, and they're all ranked under the general nationally, and that's where as Eran was saying, out in DC, they're going to determine where they're going to put that scoring cutoff. And so on.
How often does a general sign up come around?
Hopefully annually. When I first started working with Pheasants Forever, there wasn't a general sign up for a couple of years. But since the new farm bill, went through, we've had an annual general sign up since 2018. So.
All right. Well, if you're listening on the radio network, we're going to probably end the show if you're listening on the radio network, but we got more discussion with Pheasants Forever about habitat and the CRP sign up on the podcast. So download the podcast or the Sporting Journal radio podcast or the Finding Fern Feathers podcast. For those of you listening on the radio, thank you for listening. For those of you on the podcast, we'll be right back.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Otter Tail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Keeping sheep on the mountain. That's the goal of the Wild Sheep Foundation, and you can help by attending the Midwest chapter of the Wild Sheep Foundation's annual banquet, March 25th and 26th at the Minneapolis Marriott Southwest in Minnetonka. This year, you could win your very own Dall sheep hunt in the Yukon. Plus, enjoy keynote speakers like conservationist Shane Mahoney, President and CEO of the Wild Sheep Foundation, Gray Thornton, and the British Columbia Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Chapter Liaison, Bill Hanlon. Plus, there'll be live and silent auctions and seminars put on by the Huntin' Fool. For more information, go to MidwestWildSheep.com. All right, we're back here on the podcast. Thanks for watching on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, whatever. Make sure you like us, follow us, and comment below if you have any questions about the CRP program or any comments on the future of public lands, things like that. We want to hear from you. If there's a question you're wondering, like, why hasn't anybody ever asked this question? Comment below, and we'll make sure somebody gets an answer for you. We have Jared Wiklund from Pheasants Forever, Eran Sandquist, and Kayla Blocker with us right now, and we're talking to Kayla about this general sign-up of CRP, which goes through March 11th. And Kayla, you were saying that you're hoping it's annual. It's not guaranteed that that there's a general sign up every year. How do they determine, or when do they determine if there's going to be a sign up?
They determine a sign up at the beginning of the year. Obviously, there isn't going to be guaranteed funding. We want to hope that CRP will be around for as long as I would know. But there are other resources, other options, working with your local soil and water districts. EQIP through the NRCS and CSP also have options for smaller habitat areas that aren't thought about as much when it comes to protecting habitat and as well as, improving your land.
So what they so every January, so they determine if there's going to be a sign up, and I suppose every time it would probably look a little bit different. And this is from the Farm Bill in 2018. How long? How does that when does a Farm Bill change? I guess when is there a new Farm Bill? What's a determining factor on that?
That might be a better question for Jared when it comes to when a farm bill is determined.
Because I just don't follow, and I should follow the politics of it a little bit more, Jared. But all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, there's a new farm bill. Is that change in administrations, or what determines that?
Change in administrations. Typically every 4 years is when they start to sit down and form the new farm bill moving forward. And obviously CRP is high on our radar. When you look at a lot of the different things going on right now too, with sustainability, climate resiliency, carbon sequestration, there's no better program in the country than the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, or grasslands in general. So, moving forward, we're working really hard right now to make sure that CRP is going to be a viable option for landowners well into the future. The cap is going to continue to go up here to 27 million acres in the next 2 years. And our job at Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever, and through our advocacy efforts and through our Farm Bill Biologist program, which we've got a very robust one here in the state of Minnesota and nationally, we've got over 200 Farm Bill biologists on the landscape. Our job is to help landowners meet their land use goals. And whether that's for pheasants, maybe it's water quality, soil health, and it's not just pheasants. So they're focusing on white-tailed deer, the wild turkey, whatever the case may be. Our biologists can really help people find a nice mix for their property, because one of our slogans is that there's room for wildlife habitat on every farm, ranch, and piece of property in the United States. And our people are very good at helping folks determine what they want to put down for habitat.
Yeah. So how does that work? If somebody enrolls in CRP and they get the contract, who helps them plant seed, or what tells them what to plant and kind of designs the habitat a little bit?
Go ahead, Kayla.
That would be us, the local Farm Bill biologist, NRCS. We work close with NRCS and following the USDA regulations. They're planting the CRP and native grass and flowers, or trees even, to last for 10, 15 years of their first contract, if not re-enrolling. I've worked with people that are on their fourth re-enrollment of a single chunk of land.
So, and then I always get asked this question too, when somebody does enroll in CRP or other easement program, and I know there's different rules with different programs, but what can a person do? So say I put 80 acres of CRP in, can I build deer stands on that? Can I build trails through it? Are there specific rules on land use once it's enrolled in a program like that?
To an extent, there is. CRP is paying you to have a native cover on the land. Obviously, it's still going to be your land. You can utilize it as you wish. So deer stands are welcome as long as it doesn't have like a permanent cement base, or it's not your deer camp house out there. But you can use, I've had people mow down trails. I usually just recommend that you move them from year to year, so you're not constantly trampling that one area. But a lot of local apiaries, bee raisers, will actually partner with CRP landowners to put their hives out.
Oh, sure.
To have a nice place to have wildflowers.
Sure, get some pollinators out there.
Of course.
And then what you're allowed to put in a certain amount of acreage of food plots in something like that too, right?
Within certain programs, yes. It's up to 10 acres or 10% of the offer you can put into food plots. Depending on the area, it might not be feasible for you to have a traditional corn food plot. But I usually ask people to think about doing some more diverse areas where you're going to have a higher diversity of flowers for pollinators, will attract your insects, and then will be good for brood rearing for pheasants. So you'll have a good diversity in one area, as well as being able to have that mosaic of land that you can have good wintering as well as brood rearing.
I think for a guy like me who loves to hunt these birds, the next phase in the evolution of a pheasant hunter is designing a landscape. And I'm all for public land and access, but I'll tell you what, guys, I want to buy my own piece of property, and I want to design it, and I want to build a little wildlife kingdom on it. And that means a diverse set of plants and cover and food, and put it all together, because that's really what you need. And I've seen it. We've seen it in these videos. And Jared, from what we're looking at right now, we've had some winter storms, which they can weather those winter storms. See what I did there? Yeah, they can weather those winter storms if they have that right habitat complex, right?
Yeah, so I mean, weather is obviously a really important factor, but it's negated with quality habitat. So we have had some winter weather, particularly in the last week here. We had a pretty large storm blow through. A lot of the larger totals of snow went further north. So I think in most cases, a lot of pheasant country has been sitting pretty well, especially southern Minnesota as you get down into Iowa and then over in, to Nebraska and those types of regions. So, I think one thing we're all waiting for is it to warm up a little bit. We've been, below average temps here for most of the winter. But from what I can see on the landscape and people I've talked to is that the birds seem to be doing pretty fine. And really when we get into spring, that spring weather and, whether it stays average or we have a really wet spring or dry spring, which typically helps, that's remains to be seen. But right now I think we're sitting pretty good as far as winter impacts.
Well, I want to get back to pheasants, but Dan just put that snow map up, and Jared, that's got me thinking about snow geese. I'm not going to lie, because they follow that snow line up. But it's interesting, obviously the spring weather and then sometimes those June hailstorms have such an impact that winter, like tough winters can be tough on wildlife. There's no doubt about it. But pheasants are actually pretty hardy in some of those cold, snowy winters if they have places to hide and stay warm. South Dakota, by the sounds of it, doesn't have a lot of snow, and we didn't have a lot of snow here in western Minnesota before these last storms here in this past week. And it's fun to watch them all break out when that sun comes out after a snowstorm, and all of a sudden you see the pheasants break out, and obviously that means they had to hide out for a little bit, but it's fun to see them break out into that warm weather and feed up after a storm like that.
Yeah, it's been. We've had some winter weather, but I mean, I was out in Aberdeen hunting the last weekend of January, and most of the fields out there were still pretty wide open. Obviously, some snow drifts, but there's plenty of birds. They seem to be doing well, and same thing at my house. When you get the wind and snow to calm down, like it has been today, beautiful day, little below average temps, but that sun is nice and warm, and the birds are out making the most of it.
We've had a couple of good years. How do you think? I mean, you've got to think that our numbers are up, at least in Minnesota here the last couple of years. Where do you think we are? How do you think we're faring as compared to recent years? I don't think it's going to be pretty tough to get back to like those 07, 08 numbers, 06, but we've got to be sitting pretty well here. And what about here in the region? Where do you think we're at?
As far as pheasant numbers go, I'll just share anecdotally. I've only got 10 acres, but I border a 500-acre wildlife management area out the back of my house, and I'm in the Northeast Metro. And this year is the most birds I've ever seen. I harvested 13 roosters just out my back door.
That's awesome.
Reports that I heard from all over Minnesota, especially the pheasant range, so basically south and west of 94, have been really good. I think talking with Eran a little bit, I know he had some pretty nice pheasant hunts at the end of the year as well.
Well, if anybody asks, there's no pheasants by my house. They're all gone.
Clearly.
Never.
I was going to ask, Brett, when you actually get your land that you manage and create, I imagine you would invite me first, right? I'd have the first opportunity to hunt that.
Let's go. Of course. Absolutely. You bet. Well, you guys are gonna help me design it, so you'll be on it.
Well, and kind of wrapping some of this together, Jared talked about it and Kayla hit on it too, but you have an interest in creating habitat and utilizing folks, but there's a lot of landowners that want to create habitat for all kinds of reasons on their private land, but they don't have the expertise or the desire to have the expertise on what the best things are. And that's where people like Kayla and other folks come into that to play there. And so they can go into their local offices, and the USDA Service Center, a great partner and someone who's helped us create the Farm Bill Biologist program, and just outline their goals to people like Kayla, and Kayla will take it from there. They'll do the paperwork, they'll get the make sure all the technical stuff is done. They have all the recommendations for, the grasses and the seeding rates and all that stuff. They have list of contractors available to actually do the physical work. And it's really a one-stop shop that's meant to take a complex program like CRP and make it very easy for people to enroll if that's what their goals are for part of their property.
Well, lots of information there on the website, pheasantsforever.org. If anybody wants to know pretty much anything about what we talked about, we can all find it. We can find it all on that website, right? For the most part? Absolutely.
And then, one thing we didn't talk about, but that you can also find on pheasantsforever.org is all of the acquisitions in Minnesota that Pheasants Forever helped create. And so, maybe, everybody's got their favorite 1, 2, or 3 pieces of public land to go hunt. But, there's a lot of times you say, I want to find a new piece. Oh, and right on cue. Every one of those pheasants is a piece of public land that Pheasants Forever led the acquisition effort on. So you can click on one of those. You'll get the name, the funding partners, a little bit of detail, maybe some pictures, when it was acquired. So, I know Jared in particular and a lot of other people worked very hard on creating this. And so we really encourage you to get out there and find a new piece of public land that you never know. Maybe it'll surprise you. Maybe it'll become your favorite one. And if you don't see one close to where you hunt or live, let us know and we'll try to help you out there.
So, Jared, if I'm in Chicago, Nebraska, and I have I can pull up OnX and I can show you my property, can I come up to you guys at Pheasant Fest and say, what should I do here? Help me manage this property.
Absolutely. That's one of the best parts of National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic is we have our Landowner Habitat Help Desk and the Habitat Stage. If you're interested in learning more about managing for pheasants or whitetails or turkeys, pollinators, prairie grouse, whatever it might be, not only do we have a lot of informational presentations that run every hour on the hour on our habitat stage, but we also have the Habitat Landowner Help Desk, and that is an area where you can come in. All you need to know is particulars about your property, as long as you can find it on a map. Our biologists can help look up and see what kind of soil types are on there, see what kind of programs you qualify for. So you can walk into National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, which is coming up March 11th through the 13th at the CHI Health Center in Omaha. You can visit with one of our biologists, and you can walk out with a conservation plan that is tailored to whatever land use you're working on.
And of course, I said Chicago. Of course, it's Omaha, but Chicago must be a suburb of Omaha.
Yeah, Chicago, Nebraska. I'm surprised more people haven't heard of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. March 11th through the 13th. Man, there's so much going on that weekend. I'd love to get down there. I got to be at a couple of other shows here in Minnesota that weekend, unfortunately. But what do we know where it is next year? When do you guys announce next year or the following years? When's it going to be back up here?
We know where it's going to be next year. We know the dates. I'm not going to announce it yet. It's going to be announced.
Come on.
Sunday of National Pheasant Fest.
Breaking news.
But yeah, here's first.
Come on.
One of the things I did want to point out though is that if anybody's looking at making the trek to National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, my promise to you would be is that attending the show. You can help us make more public land. And I really don't think there's another, trade show or convention in the country that can say that. If folks remember the last time, I think 2020, when we were in Minneapolis, we had a new public lands pavilion, and we had a bunch of vendors in that area who helped us raise a whole bunch of money that was matched, I think, at a minimum of 3-1, and helped us purchase the Cupido Wildlife Management Area, which is just shy of 1,000 acres. In western Minnesota, and we're doing something similar this year for National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic in Nebraska in Omaha, and that our public lands pavilion this year is going to be raising money for Nebraska's Open Fields and Waters program, which is essentially their walk-in access program. Our goal is to raise 75,000 acres or $75,000, excuse me, and open up access to an additional 10,000 acres of walk-in hunting here for 2022. So that's a pretty cool thing that we can talk about that no other trade show in the country is doing right now.
Well, obviously there's some good causes, but it's just a fun show to be at too. And unfortunately I have to work a couple of other shows or else I come down, because that'd be a perfect excuse to go chase. There's going to be probably some snow geese flying around Nebraska while you're down there, Jared. I'm just saying, bring the whites, bring the 12 gauge. You probably get under some birds.
Right on the Missouri River. So
yeah. Well, good luck down there at Pheasant Fest, the National Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic. To get that whole thing right. Make sure have a good time down there. Good luck with everything. Can you give us a hint for next year? Is there anything is there no hints? No.
It's 10,000. I'll give you 10,000 hints here.
Oh, hello. All right, very good. Well, Jared Wiklund, Kayla Blocker, Eran Sandquist, keep up the good work there at Pheasants Forever, and thanks for the time today on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.